Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, the place where we talk all things records. So today I thought I'd talk to you about identifying original Rolling Stones pressings, which I found a bit more difficult in my experience than Beatles ones, but it still can be done, so do not worry. I'm going to be going over a bit of terminology as well. You might have heard of unboxed and boxed decca, so let's go through that today. So starting off with the singles, the originals will be on the unboxed label, which is this. It's just the decca lettering. And I've got an original copy of Satisfaction here, and I'll compare a later press so you can see the difference. So the Decca logo will look like that. And the publishing year sort of look does change a bit, but the most important thing really is the label, is the Decca wording, sorry. So here we have a later copy, which I'll hold them both up in a minute to compare, but as you can see here, there's a box around it now, and the wording is slightly smaller. So that's a later copy. So just to compare the two. And I'll go on to albums next, but this is just to start with. So the box Decca logo was brought in sort of at the end of '69, the start of 1970. So that's why on Let It Bleed you can consider a boxed logo to be an original. So it technically does count. So we'll explain that in a minute. So as you can see here, this copy of You Can't Always Get What You Want can be considered an original because the change of that logo happened as this was being put out, so that's why it can be counted. And as you can see, publishing year is 1969, so the change happened sort of at the end of 1969 into 1970. So now if we move on to albums, again, it's a similar way of identifying. I'm going to use Between the Buttons as my example. This is an original copy, on mono copy that is, so I'll have to get it out. Sleeve's a bit tight. These Decca ones sometimes are. This has its original inner sleeve as well. And these are very fragile, so I recommend you keep them in plastic sleeves. This is on the unboxed logo as well. I will get the disc out. So as you can see here, this is on the unboxed label, sorry, not either way. And as you can see, hopefully it's got a groove in the label, so there is actually a groove imprinted in there. And as you can see, the lettering's unboxed. So if this was a later pressing, mono pressing, it'd have a box around it. I don't have a boxed copy, but it would have one around it. So this is how you can tell it's an original. And the groove was only manufactured up to the summer of 1968. So if it's after the summer of 1968, it won't have a groove. It will just be a flush label. That's why Let It Bleed and Beggar's Banquet have no groove in the label. But an original 60s pressing, the main things to identify are unboxed logo and a groove in the label. So that's the only things you really need to look for when identifying an original. There are many label and text variations, so I'll put a link for a site called Stones on Decca in the description. I'll show Saito as well, it's pretty much the same, and of course you've got matrix information. But labels really are the easiest way. So if it's unboxed and got the groove, then you've got an original pressing. Not necessarily a first or early one, but it's an original. Now I'll show the example of Let It Bleed, which has the flush label without the groove put into it. So if I just grab that now. Now this is the copy I showed in an earlier video, which was a little while back, but I'll show it now again, just for the sake of example. Now Let It Bleed in mono is, again, as I said in that video, quite rare, but this is the way to see. So this is an original pressing. As you can see, it's got no groove, it's just a flush flat label. It's still on the unboxed label, so this is still an original first pressing. The slightly later one is on the box label, but again that is classed as an original. I've got a boxed mono on the way, it may be arriving tomorrow, so once it does, I'll do a comparison of the two mono copies I have, so keep an eye out for that. So that's, as you can see, why you can class a boxed and an unboxed as an original with Let It Bleed. That's and get your yayas out, that's the first album to have the box logo that is, you can class it as a first pressing. So that's the way really to tell original Stones pressing. And as this says 1969, that's why it doesn't have the groove, because that was after the summer of 68, of course. It's a whole year after, so that's one of the easier way to identify an original Stones pressing. So hopefully that's given you a few pointers, and thank you for watching.